This segment is sponsored by the West Michigan Home and Garden Show, February 27th through March 2nd at DeVos Place in Grand Rapids. And I am joined now by one of the headliners from the show, horticulturist Bryce Lane. He's TV host, college professor, and all-around garden guy. Hi, Bryce.
Good morning. How are you, Catherine?
I'm well, thank you. I appreciate you spending some time with us. You teach what you love, and you have been an avid gardener, I know, for over 40 years. What draws you to that? And because you've done it as a profession as well as a hobby, right?
Correct. And it's funny, when I was a teenager, I took a job at a garden center loading cars, and through that experience of working my way up in that garden center, I realized two things about myself. One, I really love plants, and two, I really love talking to people about plants. So that kind of set the wheels in motion. I ended up majoring in horticulture in college, and through some good advice from advisors and mentors, found myself going to graduate school and then actually teaching horticulture, which is really my first love. And then within that context, I love plants so much. It just kind of overflowed into the fact that I became a gardener and just happened to, I've lived in the same place in Raleigh, North Carolina for over 40 years. And so I've gardened in the same place for 40 years, which means that I've killed all the plants that I've killed in the same location.
Oh my goodness. You are going to be on stage during the Home and Garden Show, sharing your expertise, I know. You're going to be doing two seminars. The first is about beautiful bushes. Tell me about what you'll be saying to folks.
Well, it's one of my favorite talks. Oftentimes, trees and herbaceous perennials get all the press. They get all the attention. Everyone wants pretty flowers, and with the herbaceous perennials and annuals, they get talked about. Sometimes I think shrubs are kind of like the orphan stepchild, when it comes to gardening. And so, I love to talk about shrubs. I like to talk about plants that have been used for many years. I call them time-tested shrubs. And so that's what I'll be doing. I'll be talking about some time-tested shrubs, some new introduced shrubs, and just and the role that they play in the home landscape. It's not a complete plant talk. I'll talk about specific plants, but also help people give people a perspective on how they might use shrubs in their own home landscape.
Nice. Your second seminar is about attracting wildlife to the garden. In most cases, that's not desirable, but we're talking about birds here. So, of course, we love that, right?
That's right. That title oftentimes gets people a little bit nervous. It's like, well, I don't
Yeah.
want deer, I don't want rabbit. Please don't have raccoons. But this is a talk that is really kind of trending right now. This topic of attracting wildlife, and specifically birds, increasing creating a landscape that's going to increase the bird population, but also the insects that the birds feed their young with, as well as pollinators. And of course, pollinator gardening is huge right now. And so this talk, really kind of focuses in on how we as just citizens of the world can create spaces that are going to help balance the ecosystem to the degree that wildlife will flourish rather than decrease, which we've seen over the past maybe 10 or 15 years.
Can you talk a little bit about the other values in putting your hands in the soil and doing gardening the way you do?
Well, Catherine, I'm glad you asked that question because for the baby boomer generation, gardening is all about, the beauty, the aesthetics, the feeling that we get when we're out there. And as new generations came along, baby boomers, Gen Zs, Gen Xs, they wanted to see more value in gardening. In other words, well, what can it do? And so there's been a lot of research as of late, things that people in my generation as gardeners, we knew kind of intrinsically, we just kind of knew it. But now there's research to back up that gardening is an activity that helps with your cognitive function. Spending time in a garden is helps with depression and with heart health. And so now we have this whole list of benefits. For instance, children who are in an environment where there are plants will learn 20% more of what they're being taught. And so now we've got all this data that supports the idea that being in and around plants and spending time not only in gardens but gardening really helps us, our mind, our body, and our soul.
Well, you can catch Bryce on stage during the Home and Garden Show again, February 27th through March 2nd. For tickets and showtimes, visit grhomeshow.com. Bryce, so good to talk to you.
Thank you, Kathy.